In 2003, a young couple heads into the remote desert of Yavapai County to celebrate their anniversary. They only had time for a quick overnight trip, so they decided to spend the evening together beneath the stars, camping in the back of a pickup truck. But when the two failed to show up to obligations the next morning, friends and family began to worry. Because the couple had shared their camping plans with people close to them, the friends and family searching for them had a starting point on where to look and locate the truck. And when they approached it, they walked into the worst-case scenario. Nearby, a damaged disposable camera was recovered that appeared to have been intentionally destroyed. Despite that attempt, police were still able to process the film inside. Out of all the photos recovered, 3 images in particular immediately stood out to investigators. More than 20 years later, people are still asking the same question. Were those 3 photographs an important clue to what happened that night, or a red herring that sent the investigation down the wrong path? I'm your host, Megan, and each week on A Simpler Time True Crime, I cover older unsolved cases and challenge the idea that a simpler time meant a safer time. This week, I'm bringing to you the unsolved double homicide of Brandon Rumbaugh and Lisa Gurrieri. Before I start telling you about today's case, I wanted to encourage you to head over to Instagram and follow my page at SimplerTimeCrimePod. Some of you are just auditory listeners, but if you do follow the page, you know that I post corresponding photos each week that go along with the episode. And for this particular one, there are a few photos that are central to the discussion of the case. Following the page and having the post up as you listen will allow you to take a peek at them as I'm describing them and formulate your own opinions. And with that, let's get into it. Today's case takes place in Arizona in the fall of 2003. 2 young college-aged kids were getting ready for a romantic night away to celebrate their 1-year anniversary. And before we get into that night, I want to tell you a bit about each of them. The first is Lisa Gurrieri. Lisa was 19 years old in 2003 and had graduated from Mesa High School. She was now attending Mesa Community College, where she was studying business management. Her long-term goal was to become a wedding planner, inspired by the rom-com with the same title. You guys remember that one, right? With J-Lo and Matthew McConaughey. I loved that movie. Definitely one of my comfort movies I still watch from time to time. She was also working as a secretary at SRP, which stands for Salt River Project. It's a major Arizona utility company that provides electricity and water to much of the Phoenix area through a system of dams, canals, and power facilities. Lisa was loved there. Her colleagues would go on to say that she would cheerfully greet everyone with the same chipper demeanor walking through the halls, and that she was always smiling. Lisa also loved the arts and singing. She apparently had just a beautiful voice, and she used to sing at the church her family attended, Christ the King Church. The Gurrieri family had already suffered a painful family tragedy. In the spring of 2002, Lisa's father had died at just 48 years old after a battle with cancer, leaving behind his wife and Lisa's mother, Paula, Lisa, and her 2 brothers. One touching story about this is that when he was in hospice care, the family was visiting with him in his final hours, and he asked Lisa to sing to him with her beautiful voice. So she did, and after that, he slipped into a coma and passed away a short while later, which is just so sad but moving and all of the emotions. While attending college, Lisa met a cute boy at a party, and his name was Brandon Rumbaugh. He was a year older than Lisa, and he had graduated from Coronado High School, class of 2001. He had enlisted in the Marine Reserves but had been discharged due to a knee injury. He was an ASU student and a personal trainer at a gym called Fitness Works in Mesa. He had really committed his life to fitness. Those closest to him would say that he was kind of tall and lanky growing up, but he had worked really hard to build a muscular physique, and he loved training other people to do the same. He hoped to open his own gym someday. And for all his athletic endeavors, he was very well-rounded and also hugely into the arts. Brandon was an incredible dancer, and he was part of professional productions and shows. He also played the drums in a local band, and he was a painter and a sculptor. His mother was a yoga instructor, and I think she really inspired him to be multifaceted and soak up all the interests he enjoyed. Brandon was said to have a really goofy and silly demeanor to him, and you could not put a challenge in front of him that he didn't overcome. His father, Rob, would say that their relationship was just transitioning into that beautiful stage where you're still a parent, but your child's old enough where they're kind of becoming a friend to you, and he was excited for this next phase. After Lisa and Brandon started dating, things got serious quick. They knew that they were the ones for one another, and several months into their relationship, they moved in together and got a place at the Scottsdale Green Apartments. The apartments are called Denham Scottsdale now, so different name, probably some renovations, but I did post a picture of them on Instagram, not just randomly. In a few minutes, I'll take you into one of the possible leads the police had around the apartments in this case, so I figured I'd provide a visual if I could. October of 2003 marked their one-year anniversary. They were engaged, though there wasn't a ring yet. They were young kids trying to save money, which is why they pivoted when it came to their anniversary trip. They had originally wanted to go to Disneyland to celebrate, but it was going to be a bit pricey, so instead they just decided to do one night away and recreate their first date underneath the stars. Now, on their first date, they did not camp out because this was said to be Lisa's first time camping. What they were going to do is drive out to that romantic location, watch the stars, and sleep in sleeping bags in the back of the pickup truck. Lisa's mother, Paula, owned a 2000 white Ford F-150, and she was reluctant at first to let Lisa and Brandon borrow it. It needed an oil change and some work done, and also just for whatever reason, call it mother's intuition, her mom would go on to say she just had a bad feeling about it. But when she saw Lisa's excitement, she decided to let them use it in the end. Lisa and Brandon were only going to be away for a brief time that overnight from Friday, October 17th to Saturday the 18th. Brandon had to be back in Scottsdale on Saturday morning for a personal training client at 9 a.m. The place they were going to was called Bumblebee Road. Bumblebee Road is located in the rugged desert terrain of the Yavapai County, an area filled with winding dirt roads, rocky mountainsides, dry washes, and wide stretches of isolated land that can feel incredibly remote once the sun sets. The couple had planned to stop at the Sunset Point Rest Area Overlook during their trip, which is a scenic pull-off along Interstate 17 known for its sweeping views of the surrounding desert and mountains. The area sits north of the Phoenix metro area, roughly an hour to an hour and a half from places like Scottsdale and Mesa, depending on exactly where you're coming from. While the region feels isolated, it's also popular with campers, off-road enthusiasts, and people looking for a quick escape from the city. Yavapai County itself is one of Arizona's original counties, created back in 1864 during the Arizona Territory days. The county gets its name from the Yavapai people, an indigenous group with deep historical ties to the region, and the word is often translated to mean people of the sun or people of the bright sun. Bumblebee Road branches through a maze of smaller dirt and gravel roads that cut through the desert and mountains, and many of them can feel confusing or disorienting if you're unfamiliar with the area. Some roads lead to old mining sites, campsites, or off-roading trails, while others seem to just disappear deeper into the terrain. At night especially, the area becomes incredibly dark and isolated, with very few landmarks and long stretches where you may not encounter another person for miles. However, with all of that in mind, this was a popular spot, so in news reports, you'll hear it described as isolated but popular. When the couple departed, Paula gave Lisa some extra blankets, told her to be careful, that she loved her, and off they went. Lisa checked in with her mother on her cell phone along the way, knowing her mother would be nervous. And she told her mom that they weren't there yet, they still had many miles to go, and that would be the last conversation they would have. When Saturday morning arrived and Brandon wasn't back for work and they hadn't returned the vehicle, both families knew something was wrong. Brandon and Lisa were incredibly responsible, and Lisa's mother, Paula, had that nagging feeling that something was wrong all night. So Paula tried calling, and Lisa didn't pick up, so she tried Brandon's cell phone, and he didn't pick up either. The families connected with each other, as well as the kids' friends, and they tried to map out exactly where they would be. Lisa and Brandon had given loved ones the general area they would be in, but not the exact specifics. This was before you could just share your location on your cell phone. And while Lisa carried one and Brandon, they definitely were probably more of those 2000s flip phones. The one person who Lisa hadn't told about her trip was her uncle, which was the brother of her deceased father, who had definitely taken on a fatherly role in her life. And you see her uncle, he would later say that he used to party on Bumblebee Road, and if he knew that she was going to be going out there, he would have said something about it. The search late Saturday turned up nothing, and then they searched again on Sunday. Brandon's father, Rob, would later say that he hoped against hope that his son and Lisa had just done something spontaneous, like decide to go have a Vegas wedding. Even though that was completely out of character, it helped him to not have to think of the alternatives. The group went back out on Sunday, and it was made up of Brandon's father, Lisa's brother, and several of Brandon's friends. And it would take until about 3 p.m. on Sunday when suddenly a couple of Brandon's friends who were out searching finally located exactly what they were looking for, the white truck. It was in a dirt parking lot pull-off area. But the relief of finding the truck was short-lived because as they approached, they realized something terrible had happened. As the friends approached what looked like the two just in their sleeping bags, it was clear that they were not sleeping, and that both had been the victims of a violent crime. They called for help and police made their way out to the scene. This fell under the jurisdiction of the Yavapai County Sheriff's Department. At first, the public information officer for the department would only say that foul play was suspected, but within a day, it was announced that both Lisa and Brandon had been found in their sleeping bags with multiple gunshot wounds to the head and abdomen. Yavapai County Sheriff's Lieutenant Steve Francis said the killings occurred late Friday or early Saturday. There were no signs of sexual assault, no indications of robbery, and drug and alcohol did not seem to play a factor in what happened. A murder-suicide was also quickly ruled out because the weapon was not recovered from the scene, and it's never been recovered to this day. Francis asked that friends of the couple come forward just so they could learn more about them and a better understanding of any factors that may have contributed to this occurring. They also asked people who had been camping in the Sunset area that weekend, they asked them to come forward with any little clues. They said any clue may hold more significance than they think. Witnesses did say that the truck had been in the spot since at least Saturday afternoon, which makes sense because the murders were thought to have occurred overnight before that. Lieutenant Francis said at a press conference, quote, "Do we believe that it was a random act and that there's a crazy person out there? Not necessarily. Can we rule it out? Not necessarily." End quote. He encouraged people to stay vigilant and take precautions like bringing a cell phone with you, which is so funny to hear because nowadays there isn't a scenario of us not having cell phones on us. And also, the two of them did have them on back then. One thing that complicated this is that authorities estimated there to be approximately 1,000 people out there. Now, I'm unsure of how big of an area they were talking about. Like, for example, I know the major camping spot was 5 miles away. And I don't know if that's part of that number, but I'd assume yes. I just wish we had a better sense of how close people could have been to them on this night. So if you're familiar with camping in this area and you're listening, feel free to message me or comment, and I'll share some of the info on my social media pages as we continue to discuss this episode after its release. One thing to note, the truck that the two were camping in did not have a camper shell. They were literally just sleeping in the bed of it. And while that should have been perfectly safe for them to do and they deserved to have that experience, it did put them out there a bit more vulnerably as a young couple just sleeping alone, wide out in the open. The couple was shot with a .25 caliber handgun, and that was said to be a rare weapon of choice for this type of crime. If you're a longtime listener, you know I'm not much of a gun girl, so I looked into why this might be a little bit further and saw people commenting on the possible weapon and more about the case, which I'll have linked in the show notes. And one aspect that stood out was that Brandon and Lisa had each been shot 5 or 6 times apiece, and that a small caliber weapon like this would hold 6 to 8 rounds max. So either the shooter stopped to reload and continue shooting after he had already shot both of them multiple times at close range, likely killing them already, which seems like overkill, or the killer had a unique type of .25 that would be more traceable to authorities. Investigators were tight-lipped about what was found around the scene, though they did say that they lacked a large amount of physical evidence. Just a few days after the murder, police announced that they had questioned somebody who had been spotted around the scene of the crime near the time the murders were suspected to have taken place. He was a 34-year-old man whom I'm just going to refer to as Michael V. His black F-150 with a camper shell was spotted near the crime scene, and the sheriff's spokeswoman, she wouldn't elaborate as to who came forward to say his vehicle was there, but she did say that Michael V was cooperating, not considered a suspect, but they were hoping he knew something of value. Because one of the oddest pieces of this case is that despite there being people camping all over the place nearby, nobody said they heard shots. In the days after the double homicide, Lisa's workplace and the local community held fundraisers to help pay for Lisa's funeral, help set up a memorial fund in her name, and raise reward money. One way was this giant car wash, and as a result, a $10,000 reward was able to be offered, and while it brought in a lot of phone calls, nothing came of it that led to a massive break. But those calls may have pointed to a new clue. On November 11th, 2003, the Yavapai County Sheriff's Lieutenant Steve Francis announced that they were looking to speak with someone who was seen arguing with Brandon in the doorway of the couple's apartment shortly before their murders. This was around 10 p.m., a day or two before. It was unclear what they were arguing about or the duration of the argument. Now, be ready for the most nondescript description I'm ever going to relay to you. In 2003, this man was said to have been in his 40s, white, tall, husky, with blue jeans and a white shirt. Yeah, that's it. I don't believe that this description is going to locate who did this, and we don't even know if this argument had anything to do with the killings, but I did want to put it out there because it is included still as a lead in the case that they've never been able to close the loop on, one way or another. At this time, Lisa's mother, Paula, stated, quote, "I just want this to be solved. Knowing the person is walking the streets and my daughter isn't, it's difficult." 6 months after the murder, in early May of 2004, 2 men named William Middaugh and Omer Casey were murdered while camping in a remote area of Crown King, north of Lake Pleasant. And I'll have a map of that shows the distance between the 2 areas. Initially, it was thought that this could possibly be connected to the Bumblebee road killings because it was a double homicide in a remote camping area. But almost immediately, they had a suspect in that case, a man named Rusty Rankin. He went on the run, barricaded himself in a Colorado Springs hotel room, and he died by suicide. He is thought to be the killer in that case, and this case is not thought to be connected. For one, it was a totally different type of gun that was used, and the circumstances evidently ended up being pretty different. So they kind of put a pin in that and moved on. Then, in August of 2004, the case that is most often compared to Lisa and Brandon's happened, and that is the Jenner Beach murders in Northern California. The similarities between the 2 cases were unsettling enough that many people wondered whether the same offender could somehow be responsible, though investigators never publicly established any connection. In the Jenner case, 22-year-old Lindsay Cutshaw and her fiancé, 26-year-old Jason Allen, were traveling along the California coast during a short sightseeing trip. The couple worked at a Christian summer camp in California and had reportedly spent time in San Francisco before heading north toward the small coastal town of Jenner. At some point during the trip, it was believed they were unable to get a motel room for the night and instead decided to sleep on a secluded beach nearby. During the night of August 14th into the early morning hours of August 15th, both Jason and Lindsay were shot to death while sleeping beside one another in their sleeping bags on Fish Head Beach. Like Lisa and Brandon's case, the investigators quickly determined that there was no indication of robbery or sexual assault. Their belongings had been left behind, and detectives ruled out a murder-suicide almost immediately. The weapon used was believed to be a rare .45 caliber Marlin rifle, and investigators noted that the shooter appeared to have collected the shell casings afterward, suggesting a level of control and awareness at the scene. For years, the case remained unsolved despite national attention and an extensive investigation. It was actually the first case to hit a $50,000 reward at the time. Authorities explored theories involving drifters and transients known to frequent the isolated beach area, but no solid leads emerged. Then, more than a decade later, investigators finally announced a major break in the case. In 2017, authorities identified California man Sean Gallen as the killer after he was arrested in connection with the murder of his own brother. Detectives said Gallen provided details about the Jenner murders that only the killer would have known, and later uncovered evidence that corroborated his statements. Gallen later pleaded no contest and was sentenced to multiple life terms in prison. Because both the Jenner Beach murders and the Bumblebee Road murders involved young couples sleeping outdoors in sleeping bags in isolated areas with no immediately obvious motive, the two cases became linked in the minds of many people who followed them. But despite those similarities, no evidence has ever publicly connected the crimes. And it's worth noting that these are very large geographic distances apart. There are a few other cases that people reference, for example, a 2005 Oregon double homicide, where a couple was shot to death alongside their dog in a remote campsite. In both that case and the Bumblebee Road case, the name Israel Keyes gets thrown around as a possibility. Is it possible? Sure. Though I think it's worth assessing the why behind people are thinking this. Whether you think serial killer Israel Keyes committed these outdoor double homicides, or you think it's maybe not him, but definitely the same perpetrator for all these cases, I think as humans, it's easier for us to believe that this is a patterned serial killer and that there's only one person out there who's capable of doing this, versus digesting the fact that there are many people out there who are capable of committing these crimes, some who are literally thinking about it and just haven't acted on it. It's just the reality, as dark as that seems. What I've said so far is largely what's out there about Lisa and Brandon's case. But before we wrap up, I want to talk to you about the most discussed part of the case, something that wasn't released to the general public until years later. Found at the scene was, well, one piece of evidence and then two items that were missing. First, her keys were missing, Lisa's keys to the vehicle, and a case to a camcorder was found, but the camcorder itself was missing. And then, about 100 feet from the truck was a disposable camera. This is where the internet really debates this case, and sometimes the purported facts in the story take on a bit of the telephone game and some exaggeration. There is a photo of the camera on Instagram. It was featured in a local news article, but you'll hear that the camera was broken in half in some places. It was not. It was damaged. Detectives have stated they believe the camera was thrown and then took on that damage. So the question then becomes, why did the killer toss it away? Was it to render it inoperable for some reason and to try to destroy it? If that's true, then why? And if not, why bother throwing it? Was it just a compulsive act or intentional because they knew that once law enforcement found it, they'd spend a lot of time trying to process it and it would lead them to a dead end? We don't know. What we do know is that despite the camera being in rough shape, they were able to develop some of the pictures. They were also able to track the purchase to a Safeway grocery store out of Scottsdale the day they left. I have a news story linked in the show notes where there is surveillance footage of them in the store that day. And so the two of them definitely grabbed this on the way to their trip. So anything that was found on here, it would have been from that day. The first couple of pictures that police released were rather chilling because they show a shot of Lisa and a similar shot of Brandon posing in the truck. It's definitely late at night. You can tell a flash was used, but it's still pitch black around them. Both are sitting in the bed of the truck, posed. They're sitting there kind of with their legs open. They're tucked into the corner and kind of resting where the tailgate meets the side of the truck in the bed. And they're just in regular clothes in these photos. The photos are not provocative in any way, but they do seem like photos they were taking, almost like a photo shoot. In Lisa's photo, she's smiling, though her mom would later say that this was not her usual smile. She says that she looks tense to her or afraid. I look at the photo and I don't see that personally, but I'm also a mom who knows you know your kids and you can just pick up on things. I believe personally, as does police, that Brandon took the photo and then Lisa took the same photo of Brandon. But that doesn't mean that Lisa wasn't on edge or spooked about something or feeling a little off, even if at the time of these photos everything was okay. In Brandon's photo, he is posed the same way as Lisa, but his arms are crossed and he isn't smiling. Who knows, maybe he was just a typical guy trying to look stoic and serious. Maybe he wasn't that into the photo shoot idea. But a lot of people online will say that something looks off about these photos. I think that there doesn't necessarily have to be any creepy found footage crime aspect to these photos. They likely were just taking some of their time together. However, no matter what, they're going to have a chilling feel to them because you know that these were the last photos ever taken of them, and that soon after they were taken, they were going to be killed. The third photo is the most debated one online. It's an overexposed photo that it's very hard to make out. It looks like a light fixture. There looks to be a plant nearby, and that was the source of much debate. Some people say this looks like it's upside down and it's really a bowl on a table. Some say this looks like it was accidentally taken, like maybe they even wound up the film, but it went off in the purse. Some say this looks like it could be the inside of a camper. Some say it looks like it could have been taken at their grocery store. And then there's this other subset group that thinks that it looks like someone was spying when they took this, almost like they were taking it through a crack. If you read the discussions online, you'll hear that this third photo was taken after the other two, which would mean that the killer would have left the crime scene, taken this weird photo of like nothing, and then returned to the scene of the crime and chucked it into some rocks. It doesn't really make sense. And I have never found anything from a credible source that says this light fixture overexposed photo was taken after the nighttime shots in that specific order. In a 20-year anniversary article for the case with the ABC News affiliate out there, Commander Tom Bolts from the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office said that they now believe that this overexposed photo was taken in a business in the Bumblebee Road area that was a restaurant in 2003. So it seems to not hold as much weight as we think. But I would love to hear your thoughts as a listener, so feel free to comment on the Instagram post or on this episode. Police believe that Lisa and Brandon were killed while sleeping in their sleeping bags. And so that would, again, make it seem like those two photos that were the last photos, it wasn't that ominous at the time because the murder did not happen till later. But I wonder, given Lisa's mother's strong feelings that she was feeling scared or that she looked off in those photos, had they already had some sort of creepy interaction with someone that evening? Had a vehicle been driving by slowly or circled back one too many times and it freaked them out? That's, of course, just speculation, but to me, it could connect the camcorder being taken and the camera being destroyed because maybe the killer thought that the camcorder could hold footage of him or something identifiable to him like his vehicle. Maybe he felt the same of the camera. It's just a possibility. Or it could be that the camcorder part was really part of a robbery, or it was just a trophy to him. One last theory I haven't told you about yet is that of the friend. the person who found the couple who was a friend of Brandon. It's alleged that he was attracted to Lisa and was jealous of Brandon and wanted him out of the way. So some people close to the couple have felt that he was involved in some way. He passed a polygraph test, but he also left the area very soon after the murders, which threw up some red flags to people. More often than not, people are killed by someone they know versus a stranger. And this case did seem to have a personal level of violence to it. But if he wanted to be with Lisa, why would he kill both of them? The lead theory at this point is considered that this was just a random act of violence, but they don't know for sure. In that 2023 update, Commander Bolt said that cold case investigators were reinvestigating the case alongside some amazing volunteers. He said that they recently sent some evidence for advanced testing to Othram Labs, and he discussed a hope for genetic genealogy to play a role in solving this case, but said it would take time, and he didn't elaborate more on what was sent off to be tested. He also added that there was some evidence that Lisa woke up during the attack, but that they can't say that for certain at this point, and he wouldn't say what indicated that. He told ABC News, quote, "There are still persons of interest. There are a lot of people we've interviewed, a lot of people that we've investigated. We can't say any of them are no longer persons of interest. It's the nature of these is you start big and get small, and we're still in that medium phase where a lot of people are still on the radar. We're just waiting for something to break, someone to come forward to tell us something, or DNA or some other test that may be coming down the pipe." End quote. Lisa's mother told the news how early on she asked for some of Lisa's personal effects back, and they told her that they couldn't do that until 25 years later or when the case was solved, whatever came first. And she said she didn't think much of it at the time because there was no way it was going to go unsolved for that long. But here we are, 23 years later. Lisa's mother has shared that even if the suspect is deceased, she still wants to know who it is. It's likely that whoever did this has shared something with someone over the years. And if that person is you, you could hold the key to the case. You could set the wheels in motion for investigators to take the next steps. And you can do it anonymously. Both of these families deserve answers. If you have any information on the murders of Brandon Rumbaugh or Lisa Gurrieri on Bumblebee Road in Arizona in 2003, please contact the Yavapai Silent Witness Program. They are offering a $10,000 cash reward for information that leads to an arrest in this case. You can call 1-800-932-3232 or submit a tip at yavapaisw.com. This has been another episode of A Simpler Time True Crime. If you appreciate the work I'm doing, please go leave a 5-star review on your preferred listening platform, and make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Case suggestions can be made to simplertimecrimepod@gmail.com. If you wish to support the show monetarily, you can join my Spreaker Supporters Club by scrolling to the bottom of the show notes below the source material and join from there. Episodes are then ad-free while you're logged in to the Spreaker app or webpage. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'll be back next Monday.